Hello again everyone. So today I would like to very quickly talk about the new ERIKO Commander, which is our newest, well, sub-DPS kind of character for the Dark element, but she is actually an incredible strong unit. She is very easy to understand, of course, doesn't really have too much going on for her, but for what she does have going on for her, it's actually really nice. And of course, Dark element is missing some really good support for physical damage. For now, they only really have really good magic damage with Kiaru, for example, Princess Kiaru, or maybe Ranfa or Homare, you know, those kinds of characters. But right now, for physical stuff, we only really have the fallen girls, you know, so Lily, Pressure, and Queria. We do have some other characters to help them out, but they're not really that amazing. So with ERIKO Commander over here, she can actually help quite a bit, and I'll go over why in just a little bit. So let's start with her burst. It's a very simple burst. It basically deals damage and increases everybody, which is really nice. It's not an area around herself. It increases everybody's attack and critical rate by 9,000 and 125. Both of them very good amounts. 9,000 attack buff is not small by any means. It's actually quite high. It's on the higher side, but of course not like a stupid big amount. So I don't really get your hopes up. It's still quite good. 125 critical rate is also quite nice. It's not too high, but it's still a really nice amount. And she overall deals 328,000 damage, which is also very high. And of course, the damage and the buffs for this burst actually increase with the amount of characters in the team. That's why they are not like incredibly high buffs, even though they are already quite big, but they will get stronger. Of course, you have a team of 5, sometimes a team of 7, which is interesting. But of course, they will get stronger just because you have a team of 5, which is really nice. Her first skill is also very similar, also deals damage and increases everybody's attack. And they also, just the attack buff for this one, it will also increase according to the number of allies on your team. And of course, to a maximum of 7. Very similar to her burst. It doesn't give critical attack up, of course, and the damage is of course lower, but it's still very similar, and making her give even more attack to everyone in the team. You'll notice she actually gives a lot of attack overall with all of her skills, because all of her skills do scale with the number of allies on your team. And now for the second skill, it does a whole lot of stuff. This is definitely her best skill because of all these effects. It gives attack up, critical rate up, and physical and magical defensive stats, which is amazing. And besides that, she herself recovers 300 TP and gives 80 TP to everybody else on the team. She doesn't get this 80 TP, let's keep that in mind. But of course, she already gets 300. If she got that 80 on top of that, it would be kinda ridiculous, but well, we have more ridiculous stuff in the game, to be honest, so I don't think that would actually be a problem, but I digress. In any case, it's a very strong skill, because especially of the TP generation, and of course the physical and the critical buffs do also scale with how many characters you have in the team. Also keep in mind, because the maximum scaling is with 7 characters, characters like Lily, for example, will be quite nice, will work quite nicely with ERIKO, because Lily does make clones. I think she's the only character in the Dark element who makes like more units for the team. So both of them together do work quite nicely. And Lily herself, with her new unique equipment, makes her first skill actually also scale the attack buffs with the amount of characters in the team, which is kind of a nice synergy. However, for Lily, it does actually depend on the people around her, so it's kinda bad in that regard. But it's fine, it's still fine, of course. And with this, I would like to actually mention ERIKO actually works quite similarly to Pressure Fallen. She also kinda works in somewhat of the same way. She also deals a good amount of damage, and she also buffs the team, and those buffs will also scale with the characters in your team. I'll show it on screen, of course, Pressure skills, just so you guys have an idea, but basically, Pressure, besides dealing damage, her buffs actually increase the amount of critical damage your team can actually output. She basically increases the critical damage of your team. And you'll notice, ERIKO doesn't have any critical damage buffs So even though they are quite similar, they work actually very well together, with ERIKO giving the attack buffs and some critical rate, it's not a lot, but some critical rate, and Pressure giving the critical damage, which ERIKO is missing, and of course Pressure is missing the attack buffs. So they actually complement each other very, very well. Oh, and of course I did mention Lily before, giving the clones, which will also of course increase the amount of attack and critical damage for Pressure, for example. But even though, you know, they do scale with more characters in the team, there might be some cases where it would actually be better to not use Lily and use someone who would give better stats or better buffs. Sometimes that kind of stuff can happen, sometimes Lily isn't really as useful, for example, but it's a very case-by-case scenario, of course. This game is, with all those bosses and all those mechanics, is always a very case-by-case scenario, so be sure to test whenever you try to use ERIKO and Pressure and Lily together. But most often than not, they do work very, very well together. Now, should you pull for ERIKO? She is, of course, a permanent unit. I don't think I mentioned that yet. She is, of course, a permanent unit, even though she looks amazing. Let's be real here. God damn, she looks insane. But besides that, she is actually a very, very good character. Very good sub-DPS support kind of thingy. And she apparently is actually being seen quite some use in the new clan battle, or the next clan battle. That's gonna happen in a few days. Hopefully I will release this video before clan battle actually starts, and before the banner actually ends for ERIKO. So, in case you do really care about clan battle, and if you really like ERIKO, I do actually recommend pulling for her, even though she is a permanent unit, because she's kind of important, to be honest. For the current meta, if you guys do care about that kind of stuff, for the current meta, she is pretty important. But if you don't really care about that too much, it should be fine to skip her, especially if you already have the Fallen Girls, Lily, Queria, and Pressure. It should kinda be fine to skip her. You will, of course, not deal as much damage, because she does bring a lot of value to the team with the TP, even though Pressure also gives TP, if I remember correctly. But even still, she does still give quite some good stuff. Like, we don't really have this much attack buffing for the dark physical damage teams. So yeah, that's basically it. If you really care about clan battle, and if you want to do big PP damage in the the next clan battle, go for ERIKO. Don't wait for her to just show up randomly, which is unfortunate, but I'm gonna do in a future banner. And again, I'll always say this: only pull for characters if you have enough to actually pity her. So that is 30k jewels. If you don't have enough to pity, if you don't have 30k jewels, do not pull for characters. Not even ERIKO over here. If you do not have 30k jewels, I only recommend pulling for like must-have characters, and those don't really happen that often. Those characters are like people like Amis or ERIKO, and no one else is like Amis or ERIKO, so, you know, never pull for characters if you don't have 30k jewels. Yeah, that's thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyway guys, thank you everybody for coming, and I'll see you guys next time.